only way. Good afternoon. Welcome to the recess meeting, our planning retreat, Monday, February 5th. And we appreciate everyone being here. Commissioner Berger will be here in just a moment. How's that for predictions? And
Mark's still eating, hold on.
guys, we're going to start. This is going to be pretty informal. Do not worry about getting the recognition from the chair tonight. We're going to turn this over to Lance and let him lead the meeting. Just ask questions. If it gets out of hand, I may rein things in a little bit, but I don't anticipate an issue. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we'll start off just briefly by looking at the budget calendar. I need you all to review the budget calendar that's in front of you and approve it or make modifications as you deem necessary. The budget.
I don't see a problem, Mr. Chair. Do it.
Yes.
Motion approval.
Yes,
We
sir.
need a motion.
So
We have
moved.
a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting the budget calendar, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Very good, thank you. Lance?
And again, if you guys need, we'll work with you on the budget work session, so we'll have flexibility in there, and we'll talk with each one of you to make sure that it will work for you all. Okay, the next part would be the discussion on the county mission, vision, and strategic focus areas. In your package, you've got a copy of that. Your vision statement is provide the best quality of life, educationally, economically, and environmentally. Do you all want to stay with the same vision statement, or would you like to deviate from any part of that?
Gentlemen, any comments? I don't think anything's changed from my perspective. Seems to be fine.
Okay, your mission statement also, Rockingham County government will strive to provide the highest quality of life and the opportunities to achieve it. Are there any modifications for this? Are you good with keeping it the way it is?
Gentlemen, sounds fine to me.
I'm good.
All right, very good.
All right, you all have 7 strategic focus areas. They're economic development, organizational efficiency and effectiveness, public safety, citizen engagement, communication, county appearance, environmental enhancement, quality of life, and education. I'm going to hit a few of the highlights on each of these focus areas. Again, if you want to keep the 7, if you want to add any, take away any, modify them, just please let me know. But under economic development, we received $1 million to have a 15-acre site ready at the New Street Industrial Park in Eden. We received $900,000 from Golden Leaf to develop a ready site to actively market in the at the Reedsville Park. Connect Broadband, which should be completed soon and will provide access to 98% of the county. I think Derek will get into that later when we're talking about projects.
I don't know if this is possible at this point or not, but what we're going over now, is there any way to show that on the screen or show it for the people that may be watching at home?
Do we have that?
Yeah, I could step away and work on getting it put up where it could be displayed. It'll take me a few minutes to do that.
Okay. I just think that if they can see what we're talking about, it may.
And there's
be
more
beneficial.
stuff on here than I'm just highlighting but there's several areas on the sheet that looks kind of like this. But I'm highlighting some of the areas. Do you
I think
want to?
that's a good idea to do. Go ahead and do that.
Do you want to pass by this while he gets that and then come back?
Well, I think what it would do, though, it would allow those who tune in later to go back and view it at their leisure as well.
And I think you can go ahead and,
Okay.
I mean, once he gets it on there, that'll be fine.
Okay, and for economic development, the last one just highlights the water and sewer projects on 220 and 29, which we'll discuss at our regular scheduled meeting and actually after this meeting. Organizational efficiency and effectiveness, just the continuation of consolidation of health and human services. We've shared administration and financial staff. We're splitting staff budget to draw down the biggest allocations from the state. It's an ongoing process. It's a continual process, but I appreciate Commissioner Barrow and Commissioner Powell for serving on that Consolidation Health and Human Services Board. They're also working on the opioid issues that we've been dealing with on a regular basis with the epidemic, so we appreciate all that hard work. We're going to conduct a space needs analysis, which will be brought to your attention in the near future, and the library administration moved to Stoneville Library. That is in the process. We've cleared out everything. We're going to start doing the renovations, and Ryan will give an update when that comes to the project update. Under public safety, the EMS Academy has gone well. We're implementing Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the advanced EMT and paramedic training, and promoting participation in volunteer fire departments and rescue squads. And again, during the project updates, Kate's will hit on some of those things. Civic engagement and communication, we are starting the Citizens Academy back in the spring. I want to thank Kristen Tucker for that, with all of her hard work and dedication on that. So that should start back in the spring. And we're pushing out information on Facebook and LinkedIn. We have started the Instagram page because we've noticed that a lot of the younger users are using the Instagram page. We're getting a lot of hits on that. So old folks like me, Facebook thought was good, LinkedIn, but I guess the new upcoming thing is Instagram. So we're starting to push stuff out on that. Community appearance and environmental enhancement. We are completing the mobile home removal grant to remove blighted mobile homes, and we'll continue to apply for those. I think we get around 10,000 a year, and it helps us get rid of 7 to 10 blighted mobile homes that the homeowners just don't take care of and they just abandon. We've got funding from the state, and we look forward to get some more funding from the state this year to remove debris from the creeks and from the rivers. If you remember last year, we got $500,000 for that. I think we're getting more this year. You all budgeted money for the farmland preservation for this year. We haven't had a chance to actually get a proposed program in front of you, but that will be forthcoming. Quality of life, we're promoting the trails and river access points. I think that Lee's staff does a great job with that with Lindsay Pegg. Continuation of broadband improvements and cell service improvements. Access to the rivers on Settle Bridge, Planters Road, and working on trails at the Government Center and Hogan's Creek Park. Education, which is the last strategic goal or objective, would be the commissioners and school boards developed a committee with Chairman Hall and Commissioner Berger that served on that with 2 of the school board members, and they helped the school board develop a capital improvement plan for PAYGO projects and debt service. PAYGO projects is $20 million over 4 years, and debt service is $27.7 million, and that includes roofs, HVACs, et cetera. Any questions on your strategic focus areas and in the topics that I brought up so far? Again, we've got several other ones. I just kind of highlighted some of the more important ones I think the public and you all would want to point out.
You may want to put this off, but I'm curious about the numbers from our EMS under the public safety. How many in, how many out?
As far as staff-wise?
Yeah, well, new employees are what we're interested in.
I guess Kate's can talk about that a little bit. I'll talk about, in a sec, or actually right now, I'll talk about some of the staffing issues and concerns, and then we'll go into the projects, and Kate's can provide an update.
I can wait, thank you.
Okay. All right, significant staffing and project updates, where we are now versus last year and prior years. I'd like to say that we're doing much better today than we were a year ago. We had far less resignations this year than we had last year. We had roughly 50 vacancies last year at this time compared to 25 full-time vacancies now. And years before that, we've had upwards of over 100 vacancies. So you all have been making great strides with working with the staff on the salary, market studies, and the increase in employees. And I'll get to it in a second, but one of the big issues is retention. Recruitment's strong. Retention is the area that we need to work on a little more, but I'll get into that. What we've done to help with this, we've made our hiring process faster by utilizing our in-house clinic for pre-employment drug testing. We used to have to send them out, and a lot of the applicants were not very happy with that, so they just decided to find employment in other areas. We increased our salaries with the pay studies, provided a remote working option with teleworking, and that has been pre-COVID. I would have probably been not for teleworking, but it has to be a very useful tool. If we do allow teleworking, typically we have IT put a device or a software on the computer, make sure they are working effectively and for the most part, we've had very much success on that, particularly with the younger generation. That is very appealing to them, and the flexible schedule or flexible schedules that we had. Tax Department does do that. They've been very successful with that. They rotate staff in and out, not obviously during tax season, but when it's not, it works very, very good. And staff is very appreciative of that. We just have completed a survey that Ms. Tucker's also completed, and I've been going through that, and a lot of the mention from teleworking and flex schedules were pretty paramount as far as importance to our younger staff here. We encourage promoting from within to open up more entry-level positions so we can elevate people, current staff, to existing promotion positions. The implementation of the COLA at 4% and the performance merit at 3%. And we've adjusted the pay plan by 2% with the COLA to help with compression salaries. So you guys have done a great job with that. Again, you can see it by what Human Resources with Stephanie can relate and can express the appreciation of that with our recruitment of staff. Now, retention is a little more different. We are facing challenges in environmental health specialists, our detention officers, our patrol officers, paramedics and EMTs, even though we're almost there, and Case is not having to get behind the truck and drive right now, or Rodney's not having to drive right now. So they're doing a better job of that. But the telecommunicators and also social workers, we're having a difficult time. But it's not just Rockingham County, it's North Carolina and just the nation in general. Recommendations for the upcoming year: keep our salaries competitive with the market by working with PTRC on the hard-to-fill positions, which I mentioned earlier. Address salary concerns for the positions, and that's about $800,000 that we'll be recommending. We'll be asking you to consider another COLA and keep a performance measure in there for the upcoming year. Are there any questions about staffing? Stephanie, do you have anything to add to anything with staffing?
You had said that the other agencies bordering us are having the same difficulties filling the same positions. I went on the websites today, and if you went on our bordering counties, Stokes, Caswell, Guilford, and looked at their vacancies, they have the same exact job vacancies that we have. So that makes me feel better to still know that we're not alone in that.
Any questions or comments on staffing?
When you say that they have the same vacancies, you're talking about specific positions, right?
Yes. Our social workers, our paramedics, our sheriff's deputies specifically.
Okay, so it's those three departments are the primary? Okay, all right.
And those are the ones that PTRC is looking at, a more in-depth study currently as we speak for those positions. And what we have found is you just can't go by what's listed on their websites or the data that they submit that says here's the entry-level pay. There are several counties that you can go to their website and it says that they're making $42,000 entry-level. But if you look on any of their job postings or anything, the minimum pay for that same job is $52,000. So their pay plan says $42,000, but they're hiring at a much higher rate than that. She has data that we found on one just today. So PTRC is looking further into that to see what's really out there. And people also are not necessarily responding to these surveys because they know what that survey's for. So we're having to look a little deeper into looking at actual job postings and recruitment tactics that the other counties are using.
Well, I would ask you, since I'm chair of the PTRC now, that if you have something that's specific and would help us in our analysis, please let me know so I can make sure that it's doesn't languish.
The revisions that we've made to the pay schedules in the past couple of years and the COLA and merit increases, would you say that they have some significance in helping to correct the problems that we had? I know we were way down, over 100 vacancies, 2021 when I got on the board and we started looking at this. And now that has shrunk considerably, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And would you say that those improvements have certainly helped?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Based on my research on what we've done, it looks like that the county staff has received more in area of raises through the work on the classifications as well as the individual raises than they did in the last 9.5 years put together. That's a pretty fair statement.
Yes, sir.
Based on what you've seen.
Yes, sir.
So, but we've still got some work to do, is what you're
Yes, sir.
saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But all in all, the staff, after looking at the survey, and I just had looked at that this past week, all in all, your staff's pretty satisfied. Always they're seeking additional, but they're most of all pretty satisfied with where they are.
Point of clarification real fast. So did you say that looking at other counties, what they advertise as their pay is $10,000 less than what they actually have posted on their site? Is that what you said?
No, the opposite. Their pay plan that you will, like, approved in the budget, our pay plan is listed there as part of our budget. You can go to those websites and find these jobs, and let's say that it's someone in EMT, it's 42,000. But when you look at their active job posting, where their HR is recruiting, it may be 52. So it's 10,000 higher than their pay plan.
They're hiring above the men's.
They're hiring above the men's.
Right, okay, that was what I thought you said. But you're saying even with those advertisements at 10,000 above what their pay plan says, these are still vacant, is that? Okay, thank you.
And it's also, we are starting to see something that has not necessarily always been common across the board in government is upon qualifications. They're taking your qualifications as well. So we ultimately don't know what these individuals are being hired at unless we can find individual pay. So that number of, here's your pay plan, here's that number, everybody sees it, is not a number that we're shooting at. It's higher than that.
But again, over the past couple of years, we have been fairly competitive, as we can see by the numbers of recruitment.
Way more.
Anything else on staffing? Stephanie, anything else you have? Okay. All right, let's move on, if you don't mind, to project updates. Ronnie? That was good.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Just want me to go down, Lance? You
Yes.
just want me to go down this list? The way it is here?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That's what we got in front of them.
All right, so the first one is the VHUC light construction over at the old A&E building. So the interior of the building is complete. The little bit of exterior work is complete. We have just a couple items left to finish up, which is looking at pricing some upgrades to flooring there. And as soon as we can get 3 prices back on that, we'll bring that back to Lance and Derek to see about proceeding with changing out the flooring there. But everything else, as far as our end of the project is concerned, is complete.
Is that for us as well? Yeah. All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Ronnie.
Okay. Any questions about VHUC?
I just want to get your opinion on something since you're the man in charge on this. At the Rockingham County Recovers meeting the other night, the representatives from Daymark said that they were optimistic that we'd be able to get this up and running by March 1st. Does that seem realistic to you? Okay, thank you.
It's construction-wise, I see no issue with that. I can't speak to staffing, obviously.
Construction is my concern, yeah, thank you.
Ronnie, also, just for the public that may be watching, a BHUC, that stands for Behavioral Health
Urgent Care.
Center.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yep. Too hard to say, that's all.
It is.
All right.
I might add, I had a conversation with the folks at VIA about 2 weeks ago, specifically over this money and how we are funding this. And I'm assured that VIA intends to follow what Sandhills was doing for us. But I would ask you and your staff to keep either Mr. Duncan or me fully apprised of what's going on so that that also doesn't languish.
All right. Okay, so the next one is the building upgrade slash space study. And I think Lance alluded to this earlier in his talking points. I do have this on the agenda for the February 19th meeting to bring back to the board to approve a scope and the costing for the scope to pay Mosley Architects to do the space study of the facilities here at the county. So you will be seeing that in 2 weeks, brought back to you for approval to move forward with that project. Water and sewer, let me find a different sheet for that, please. So the water and sewer projects, they are actually moving along really well. The largest one, of course, is the force main upgrades on US 220. It's the large green pipes that everybody sees out there and has all the questions about. But it is, as of right now, it is still on schedule. They started the project at the Mayadan Treatment Works, working back south to 704, and have started going north from Red Birch Lift Station. They're in the process now of pressure testing those lines that they've installed. I think once that's complete and they're satisfied with that testing, they will continue moving forward with additional pipe installation. It is slated to be completed, I think, in November of this year, October, November. So two probably the longest lead items that we have are the lift stations and the generators, but I know they are working through submittals on those to get them ordered and get them here on site. So that one's moving along really well.
And just for clarification, I believe this project started years ago.
Yes, sir.
We've got some folks that apparently voted on that project and didn't know what they were voting on. So if you could get into a little bit of the history, because I believe that is something that started at least some of it was in 2017. And,
yes, sir. So all of our utility projects, the recent ones, have a pretty long history, dating back to 2015 with some water lines on 158 and 220. As we progress through those, I think staff and county recognized a need for wastewater capacity. We were getting, my department was planning zoning, Lee's Department of Economic Development. We're getting calls almost weekly from developers looking for property to develop and us having sewer capacity. The water capacity was there with those monies set aside by OSBM at that time. So we were lacking in sewer capacity. So in roughly 2017, the board was apprised at that time that we needed to start working with the towns of Madison and Mayadan for capacity. The board at that time did approve for staff to move forward with an MOU with those towns to get the project started. There was no need to do a project if we did not have the capacity from the towns. That was the first brick in the foundation to move forward with wastewater capacity. And so from that, it led to getting that MOU approved. Then it led to the start of design and permitting with LKC Engineering. That was in 21, I believe, when that started. The board approved LKC to proceed with the design and engineering for the project. And it progressed from there through permitting. The board, I think, got an update in November of 22 on the progress of all of that and where we were. And the project started this past summer. So I think all along we've tried to keep the board and the public apprised of what's going on with this project. There's a significant amount of money involved with it, and so we felt like we needed to make sure everybody understood what we were spending on and what we were doing.
Okay. But again, that started, I think you said 2015 or 16.
Yes,
And
yeah.
It just seems that there's some folks out there that want to think that it happened overnight, but DEQ doesn't allow it to happen overnight.
No,
And-
you don't, being involved in this the way I have, these things are 2-3 year long projects to get to the point you're actually starting construction. And there's
Commissioner
just,
Berg, if I may, I think if someone wanted to, they could look at our November 20th meeting of 2017. That's when that was originally discussed, that you talked about 158 and 220. And you're right, that was a unanimous vote from this board at that time.
think most of us knew what we were voting on, so.
Well, and again, as you mentioned, in 2021, I think that was April 5th of 2021.
Yes, sir.
And again, that was unanimous vote as well by this committee, by this board. Thank you, Ronnie.
Ronnie, I'd have one question, if you would clarify this. There actually are some people that did not realize that we had sewer already in the ground on 220. Can you just talk about that? I mean, I don't need the capacity numbers, but that's been there for quite some time already, has it not?
Yeah, from the early to mid-2000s, that project was completed then, and I think it was done in 2 phases out there for sewer and the original water project as well. So sewer's been in place since the mid to late 2000s with a capacity of around 250 to 300,000 gallons. The board at that time in the water and sewer policy had sort of designated that area to be for industrial growth, and I think that's why those capacity numbers were that low. This board had, in the mid-2015s or in that area decided, hey, we want to look at development there as well, not just commercial and industrial. And that's when I think the whole area opened up with the residential development. And that precipitated the need for the capacity upgrades.
So let me ask you just one question on what you said. So originally, the sewer lines were designed for industrial commercial growth, but not residential growth, is that
That is
correct?
correct.
So they didn't take that into effect. So the upgrade that we're doing now, the increased capacity takes into effect all of the housing that's not currently under construction or will be under construction in the southwest corridor, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is
And
absolutely
that
correct.
was what precipitated the need for the increased capacity, and we started that back as early as 2015.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were seeing, like I said, we were getting calls weekly and with a lot of folks interested in developing that area out there.
Thank you so much.
Ronnie, I have a question. I'll try not to get on a tangent here, and I'll try to be concise. But being from Eden, I'm very sensitive to potential EPA mandates and that sort of thing, because they've been under one for a long time. With the wastewater expansion that we're doing, with all the money that's came in from the state and the money that we've allocated as a county, do we have any, and I'm not trying to usurp or question Mayodan, how they handle the wastewater, but do we have any sort of oversight or say-so on how they manage their wastewater treatment?
In Eden or in
No,
Mayodan?
in Mayodan, for the expansion we're talking
Yes.
about.
So what we've looked at doing is, and we're actually going to start it here pretty soon, is monthly or quarterly meetings with the towns to work with them and just make sure things are progressing as they should with their upgrades. They have an excellent staff over there in running their wastewater treatment facility. And I think it's just for us to have a little bit of input on, hey, what you're doing here, how's it going, is there anything you need from us on the county side, those types of things. But we are working with the towns in that area as a group to look at those issues and things going on.
But to answer your question, we don't have any oversight, and when it comes
Yeah.
down to it, for the either the lines themselves or the plant, that's up to the town of
Yeah.
to Mayodan, that's not us.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, if something were to go bad, we've signed off on this. So if the federal government decided that somebody's going to be held responsible, we could potentially be on the hook for that, or is only,
No.
No,
Okay.
it would be made.
Now, if it's our lines, if
Yes.
it's the county's lines, yes, but if, as far as the
Yeah.
plant or their system, that's on them.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions about 220? Okay. The next part of the sewer projects is the Hogan's Creek booster pump upgrades. And so that is a water project to relocate the existing booster pump out of the floodplain down at Hogan's Creek.
Where is Hogan's Creek?
Okay, so it is about a half a mile south of Colonial Funeral Home.
Oh, it's on 220.
Yes, sir, on
Okay.
220. Yes, sir. So that is to relocate that booster pump out of the floodplain. That project is progressing also as on schedule. The booster pump should be here any time now. It was said to be delivered early February. Project should wrap up in March, here in a few months, once they get that complete. The piping has already been connected to our system. We had a shutdown of about 3 hours back in January to do that. The piping's connected, and so that one is moving along well. Also, once that one is complete, then the contractor for the force main project can move into that area and upgrade the lift station there. We can't have them both on site at one time. The site's pretty narrow and small. So once they get done with the booster pumps, Yates Construction will move in and start with the lift station upgrades and repairs there. Fishing Creek Lift Station, for those who don't know where Fishing Creek is, it's off of Harrington Highway near the Mebane Bridge. We got a grant, an AIA grant to relocate that lift station out of the floodplain. The application to DWR, Division of Water Resources, was submitted last week. Design for the project is almost complete. I know they were working on some electrical designs here past few days. I would look for that project to bid in the next 90 days for replacement and upgrades there to that facility. Any questions? Next one is the AIA water and wastewater assessment studies. These are both ongoing right now. LKC is doing a lot of data collecting on both of our water and wastewater systems. They will be reporting back to you in the future about the assessment of those systems, what improvements they may need, and those types of things. But right now, it's just in data collection for both of those studies. And I think that's it for the water and sewer projects.
Anything on Eden?
No, no, I don't need, no, sir. So I've got, let's see.
Firing range.
Firing range, okay, so the firing range, indoor firing range, the design is completed for that project. We have been looking to find a third-party operator for the range itself. We released an RFQ for this on 3 separate occasions, where we did not receive any response back to those. I've been in contact with the design team and also with a representative of the National Sports Shooting Foundation about guidance for how we can locate an operator, waiting to hear back from them on that. So we're still looking for an operator and still working on that part of that project. Landfill. So operations seem to be progressing well out there at the site with wall recycling. We're receiving very, very few complaints out there. We're still working just a little bit on the franchise agreement. Hope to have that to the board at a future meeting in either March or April for your approval with that. And we are also reviewing proposals for the trash hauling operation services here in the county, looking to bring that to you at a future date as well for that.
I have a question, if you would, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you know, at the landfill, how many more years do we have on the current sale that's out there? Do you know?
Let me think here. I think it's through 2036, I believe.
So it's fair to say.
That's permitted. That's what we have permitted today.
So we would be good through 2036.
Yes, sir.
Fair to say the county's not looking to buy any land to start a new landfill. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have an additional property beside of where we're operating right now. And what I would think the county would do is look to have that area permitted next.
But we don't have to do anything until we get closer to 2036.
So make it clear, the current cell that we're operating right now, I think we have to build another cell here soon. So
Yeah,
that's what, 5 years or 4 years? The current sale that we're
The
operating.
current sale, we've got 2 years left on it.
But we've got permitted at the landfill to 2036 capacity.
Yes, sir.
And then we got land that's almost double that in other areas that would have to get permitted.
Yeah.
That would take you for another 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So we're good on the land we got for landfill purposes.
I think so right now, and we're seeing with all recycling, we've seen the compaction rates go up dramatically, and so that will help with airspace and with making those sales last longer.
When you talk about the compaction, when they're able to compact the debris better, then it extends the life or the capacity of that sale, is that correct?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick question as far as the compression. Am I correct that there's also a potential system they may implement once the longer franchise agreement is signed that could also help with compaction? Have we discussed that in the Solid Waste Committee?
For the
Oh, yeah, so that, it's alternate daily cover. So they are using a couple of different products for that now, a mixture of wood chips and auto fluff, instead of having to use dirt for their daily cover. So it's the chips, auto fluff, and tarps. And so that material is spread much thinner than you would if you had to cover it with dirt.
dirt's 6 inches
Yeah.
daily, and this fluff could be 1 to 2 inches. So you can think every day
Yeah.
you're saving 4 to 6 inches or 4 to 5 inches of
Yeah.
cover. That's a lot of cover.
Yeah. And they're not having
Thank
to
you.
come back and strip the dirt off at the start of the next day. You can just go right over it, remove the tarps, and continue operations.
Also, can you brief them on the WAGA, the landfill
Sure,
gas?
yeah. So for those, I hope you remember, Waga Energy is a company that we've been working with for several months with them to convert the methane gas at the landfill to renewable natural gas. They were looking to build a plant at the facility and pipe that gas over to Williams Transco location on NC 65. We got a revised contract from them last week. Staff's reviewing that, and I think we will be bringing this to you late March or early April for approval of that project. They had an original site for the location of that plant. They've decided to move it closer to Baker's Crossroads at the actual end of where our last future cell will be built at. It seemed to work better for them, for their operations, and so they've had to go back and look at a couple of things with that. But that is progressing well, and like I said, you should be seeing it here in the next month or so.
And Ronnie, just to be clear, that location you're talking about is owned land that the county currently owns?
Yes, sir.
Thank
And
you.
it's actually in an area that is, we have to have a 200-foot buffer around all of our property lines. And so this would actually sit in that buffer since nothing else can go there. So it's a space we would not be using at the landfill for trash.
Thank you.
Ronnie, what sort of processes or procedures do you have in place to, in essence, protect our landfill? And I'm talking about retaining the use of our landfill for Rockingham County purposes versus outside dumping.
Well, first and foremost, the contract that we're getting ready, I hope that you all will approve. It has very strict and stringent language in it about not taking outside waste unless it's approved by the board of commissioners. So if for some reason it did happen, they would be in breach of that agreement, and the board could obviously terminate it if they wanted to. And that's probably the single biggest thing we have. But while tonnage is progressing or going up slightly, we're not seeing a big increase in tonnage to where you would say, okay, they're taking another town's waste or something like that. It's a sort of a steady climb. It's not a big jump. So we're monitoring the waste stream to see, if we see something like that.
So in essence, only designated dumping is allowed, and it would be on a case-by-case basis that would have to be approved by this board to allow some outside person to dump.
Yeah, the board still has full control of where the waste come from, where it comes from, and the tipping fees, those types of things.
And just keep in mind, though, that sometimes you will see a truck in there from Raleigh or from Clayton or wherever.
Yeah.
If they're doing work in the county, if they're helping somebody with construction, I mean, they can we allow them to take their trash there because they're doing construction here with the housing and with some industrial. So if you do see, or if you do get a report, you see a truck from Raleigh or from somewhere else, the odds are they're probably doing work for someone within the county for construction debris.
And to Commissioner Richardson's concern, we've discussed this in the Solid Waste Committee as well, and they're very clear that they have no intention, Wall people are very clear they have no intentions of
Yes.
rocking the boat or trying to pull any wool over our eyes or anything
Yeah.
like that.
And we've had a couple of instances where I think the calls have come to Lance about those types of questions. We've investigated and found them not to be true, so.
You want to mention the third-party inspections? We've had others
Yes,
looking at
yes,
that.
sir. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. We had a gentleman come and do a third-party inspection at the landfill. And he actually ran the landfill, a tri-county one in the eastern part of the state. And so he came up here one day and spent a good part of the day with myself and him riding around, looking at operations out there. He had nothing but just really good things to say about operations and how they were running the facility out there. Even said, explained to him how we have GPS locators on our equipment out there. He said where he worked at, they don't have those. So he felt like we had a huge advantage over what he did. But he had one small concern about some water ponding on top of areas where there's dirt. But other than that, he said it looked really as good as he thought it could look and all. So he had nothing but good things to say about operations. And we have, and just so you know too, we have, I think Thursday, we have a DEQ inspection out there as well too. So the state will be out there Thursday checking on things, this annual inspection.
Any other questions from Ronnie on any projects? All right, thank you, Ronnie.
All right.
Derek?
So at the end of January, we officially come to the 2-year point on our broadband project. And at that time, we did achieve our goal of 3,250 houses.
Well done.
There's some good news and bad news to that. We exceeded our goals, but there's still more to do in phase one. Through the process, we identified additional addresses that could be serviced through the project plan that we had in place at no additional cost. So we estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 additional addresses to be added to that phase. Those areas are being actively worked right now. We're expecting to get some target completion dates on those soon. Part of the process is why it was delayed is because, as we discovered through the process, we had to go through the permitting process. There's DOT permitting processes, and there's also right-of-way for pole carriers to get on the poles or things like that. A couple of cases, we had to go into railroads, so those permits take a little bit longer than expected, so those are being actively worked at this time. That leads us to a phase 2 of this. We are working through the address points of those. We're in excess of 500 address points that we've discovered that were not hit in phase 1. A lot of those address points are coming to us from a failed grant by SpaceX. They claimed a lot of the areas and said they were going to surface it, so we could not do it in phase 1. They have since pulled out of that grant and will not be servicing those areas. So those, we're trying to identify those to make sure that we can adequately service those. So we're in negotiations with Spectrum on that right now. We have funding in the project plan for what I foresee we will need, so we're proceeding with that. Our hope is as soon as I agree that those are the address points, we would move forward with phase 2 with no additional needs to come to you guys. So our target goal is the 98% completion of the county. There's always going to be outliers. We have driveways that are 3 miles long. There's some outliers like that. We have a few address points that are in North Carolina, but they're serviced by Virginia Power, Virginia Teleco, but they show up in ours, so we're having some problems with those. But we're talking one-offs here and there.
And Spectrum will go down how far a road?
As part of this grant, 2,000 feet.
And Derek, the 98% number, is that at the end of phase 1, or is it you're saying that'll be at the end of phase 2? Okay. Thank you.
But at this point, we're in the upper 90s as far as,
We're way in the upper 90s. I mean, we're talking less than 500 that we've identified right now.
okay.
And there's going to be some more. We're working through those. We've received phone calls over these 2 years. We're going, Christy on my staff is working through the database right now, trying to match everything to make sure that we're not missing anything that we're aware of. And we're also, I want to agree, we do a physical drive out. So before I sign the check for Pat to pay these, for this space, we physically drive the roads and look at every address point. We may discover some more along that process. We did when we wrote out in our first 40%. So until we get that, we don't know, but our target is to get 98%.
And just to, I guess, make sure that the public understands where this money came from, this was COVID money that we utilized our portion. We didn't use, I guess you can say, local tax dollars to accomplish this, correct?
There were no local tax dollars used in this project.
And there was also other parties that joined with us, the school system, the community college, Reidsville Area Foundation. Am I leaving anybody out?
No, sir. It was Reidsville Area Foundation, Rockingham County Schools, and Rockingham Community College,
Okay.
and us.
Yeah, I know at this point, we've got throughout the country a number of other areas trying to catch up with what we were able to do with COVID money. And the federal government is, I guess, now spending twice as much because a lot of those other areas utilize their COVID money with giveaways and other things that didn't necessarily benefit the entire population. But
We were
Thank you.
Just to say, we were first in the state of North Carolina to do this and third in the Southeast.
thank you. And we certainly thank Derek for all of his hard work on this.
And I want to reiterate how important, I appreciate what you did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when that federal money was being held out, those counties here in this state have still not signed their contracts. So we are in the upper 90s. We've done 3,250 address points. We've hit what we know we could hit in that phase one, and we still have people that haven't signed contracts that are sitting on this money. So that means a lot to our citizens. So I appreciate that. Any questions on broadband? The HR finance system, the project that we've talked about for years and often not started. I'm going to get Pat to smile on. We have officially started this project. We had a kickoff in mid to late January. Pat had a work sessions last week to start the phase of it. We're going to work through. Pat's team actually started off with redoing how we do it today. We're not going to make the same mistakes that we made before. Pat buckled down last week and is working on some of that project this week and did amazing work to set the foundation to try to make us more successful with this system. And our target date is July of 25 to go live. Anything to add to that? No. And it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, we're not just going to do what we did before. We're trying to redo it and try to do it right and take our lessons learned. Any questions?
Okay. If not, Kate, you mind coming up here?
So the radio project, I think is first up. So the radio project, I think, is what's first up. I talked with David Jones this morning, Mobile Communications America. He runs their Winston-Salem shop. They have all of the radios and all the radio components at their shop. The radio components being microphones, belt clips, chargers, bank chargers, things of that nature. I think one time I reported before, a lot of the radios were in, the components were not in. They have everything at this time. They're in the process of programming these radios so that they can be distributed. We had to send them a prioritization of how we wanted these radios to come out, who needed them the worst, the quickest. The Sheriff's Department was up first. They have approximately 250 radios that they're programming right now to get to the Sheriff's Department. That's portables and mobiles to outfit the Sheriff's Department. Second will be 911. Third is the Fire Marshal's office, then EMS and rescue, and then emergency management. We've actually were able to pick up one for the fire marshal. They have a brand-new truck that's getting ready to be outfitted, so they did have that radio and have it programmed for us. We picked it up. We picked up 2 of the EMS radios for 2 new vehicles that we have there, so they are working on them. David stated this morning that barring no large issues that they may have, their target date is mid-March to get these out, distributed and installed. So it's been a lengthy
Is that for all
project.
departments?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, we are assisting all 3 rescue squads with their radios.
That is correct, yes, sir.
In case anybody's watching and doesn't understand what we're talking about, could you just give a brief synopsis of why we're replacing the radios and when the deadline is to have that completed?
Yes. Rockingham County operates off of the state of North Carolina Viper radio system. That's a system that's put out by the North Carolina Highway Patrol, the Department of Public Safety. They maintain the system, which is a huge cost savings for us because they maintain the system. We don't have to. But they have upgraded their system to what they call TDMA, which is Time Division Access Monitoring. It's currently frequency monitoring. What it does, you can put more radios on the system with a new upgrade. The new upgrade called for new radios that could be programmed to TDMA compatibility. We did not have any radios that would meet that, as many other counties in the state didn't. So we were forced to come on board with TDMA radios so that we could be compliant. The transition date's June of 2025, so we're right on target with where we need to be to meet that deadline and be compliant with what they call the P25 update.
Thank you, sir.
The second thing I think you have on your agenda is EMT academies. We have had 2 academies, very, very beneficial for us. We ran academies when it was very, very hard to find employees. We found out through surveying employees that a lot of people wanted to pursue an EMT career, but due to the financial strains of everyday life, they couldn't go to class. They couldn't go to class at night and take time off from work or family or whatever to do that. So we put on 2 different academies. We graduated a total of 12 people out of 2 academies. Currently, we still have 5 of those people employed. Of the additional 7, 3 were terminated, 4 resigned, but of those 4 that resigned, 1 went to basic law enforcement training, and he was very upfront that was his overall goal in time. 1 went back into construction, which is where he came from. 1 had small children. She went back to being a mother. And the 3rd went back to the the 4th one went back to the nursing home, which is where she came from as well.
As an employee?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Not as a patient. But I think that's important because we didn't lose them to other agencies. We didn't lose them to other services. We lost them back to what their preferred career path would be. From that, the academy was set up into 3 phases. Phase 1 was no certification to becoming an EMT basic. Phase 2 was EMT basic to becoming an advanced EMT. And Phase 3 was from an advanced EMT moving up to a paramedic. Of the 4 people that we have still from the original academy, 2 have completed Phase 2 and are currently serving in our service as advanced EMTs. One of the people that graduated from the last academy, her plan is to move into the advanced EMT certification in May, and we'll talk about that in just a second. When we began Phase 2 for our original academy students, some of the people that we originally had in our service wanted that advanced credential as well. So we actually had 3 current members that took that as well, which again enhanced our service. The Office of OEMS has just opened up probably within the last 3 or 4 months the scope of practice for the advanced EMT and the EMT. So the skill set for the advanced EMT is very similar to that of the paramedic, with the addition of what narcotics they can push and things of that nature. Their skill sets are very, very similar at this time. Currently, we have 4 members that are in a paramedic class, and that's a partnership with our agency and Rockingham Community College. And the current plans moving into the future is to continue the partnership with the community college to hopefully run an advanced EMT class in May, which will be followed by a paramedic class as soon as the advanced class is completed. So that'll be somewhere around the September timeframe to move those people. We have 8 people that are interested in doing that. So hopefully we can roll 8 through the advanced class and 8 more into the paramedic class. That's still where we're hurting. We're getting applications. We're 3 people short right now, but if you look at position-wise, Warm body-wise, that's good. Paramedic-wise, we're still short paramedics, but those applications are very, very hard to come by. So if we can farm those within our own agency, it's career path for our people, and then at the end result, we'll turn out some more paramedics.
Do you want to mention anything about the modifications of the EOC, the grant funding and all that? EOC?
Oh, yes, we're currently updating our Emergency Operations Center. We were very fortunate, about a year ago, we got a $50,000 grant from Duke Energy. That grant was to be used for overall enhancement of emergency services. Our EOC, Emergency Operations Center, had not been updated in quite a while. So we're currently, and Ronnie's group has been very good. They've gutted it out for us. We have a paint contractor ready to go in. We have already contracted with the audiovisual company to come in and update it. So we'll have a new updated, technically a state-of-art emergency operations center, hopefully within the next 60 days. New televisions and everything. And again, grant funded through either the Duke Energy grant or the Emergency Management Preparedness Grant, which is state and or federal money that we get.
Question for you about the paramedics. You said the applications were hard to come by. That doesn't have anything to do, I'm asking, does that have anything to do with the current pay scales or anything that we're doing, or is it just a shortage of paramedic applications statewide?
It's a shortage statewide. If you look at every service, it's a shortage, but along with that shortage, services are starting to bump up their pay again. So, I mean, as you all know, and as has been discussed today, that the need to stay competitive with the market is certainly ever present in all positions, but certainly in the paramedic, EMT, 911 positions, staying competitive is huge right now because the market is so open for those positions.
And so to explain for the public what you're talking about is that every time we tend to raise salaries in the paramedic scale, our neighboring counties will go through the same thing. So it's almost a bidding war at this stage. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just want to say, Rodney, I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone that's been through the EMS Academy. I appreciate the interest from our current employees that are interested in moving forward. You know, I know it's a thankless job sometimes, but we really do appreciate what you guys do, so thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gates.
Yes, sir.
All right, Todd? He's going to talk about the current year tax-based trends.
Good evening, y'all. I want to go over some numbers here with our trends that we've seen here. The 2023 overall totals for building permits for main structures went up to 458 from 450 in the year of '22. Stick-built homes were at a high this year of 324 compared to 300 for the year of '22. And we had some upfits for existing buildings on commercial. And we also had, which industrial, we have Nestle Purina and we have Farmina Pet Foods, which has started construction now on their manufacturing plant. Deeds and plats were a little down from this year. From last year, they went to 4,400 from 4,454, which was still very close to last year. And our sales ratios, how that works in 2019, when we had our last reval, we were 100.77%. And at 2023, we were at 69.55%. So that shows the variance of that, you know, from the 2019 reval until, you know, of course, we're getting ready to do ours this year. Sales indicate still a very strong residential market with property selling higher than value in most instances. And Pioneer Appraisal is still working on the land rates and the building rates to final out the 23 assessed values. And we're planning on mailing out our revaluation notices by the end of March. Personal property values, they always have large swings. because of additions and deletions, and will not have figures until after April 15th of 2024, because that is how long they're allowed to file an extension till. We are always hoping we have new businesses and industries which will offset any business personal property losses from previous closings. And we have received some disclosed information that several businesses are going to be expanding or putting equipment in, but no final values have been given on those. We've toured Purina to address the work and equipment there for last year. And again, we will be adding Formina Food, which is under construction for 2024. Public service companies, values will not be set until September this year, but we will have no equalization in this year. We have been very fortunate to see increases in Duke Power and public service companies over the last few years. And the Department of Revenue always suggests allowing for a reduction each year to be conservative. We can never rule out a decrease, but values have been stable for several years. Some interesting information here is in 2023, our total system value was $1,068,523,604,000, which was an increase of $78 million from 2022. So our 2023 total equalization billed amount was $818,667,994 for a loss of $249,855,610. But we had figured on a loss larger than that. So we saved more money than we planned. And thanks to y'all approving to do the 2024 reval, we saved a lot more money for this coming year. Registered motor vehicles, they did increase in assessed value for 22-23 from the previous fiscal year. Totals through December 23 have increased since last year. And for 2024, we project at least a 2.5% decrease for market research in new and used vehicles. Collections, we had our highest collection percentage ever last year of 98.61. We have increased this year from last year. As of January 31, we were 93.83% collected. On January of last year, we were 93.52% collected. So our staff's doing a very good job with that. We mailed out our delinquency notices on Thursday and Friday, so we've been getting a lot of calls on those, and it helps out a lot when we do that. And as a summary, public utility values, again, will not be certified until September 24 with no equalization this year. And public utilities, we feel, should remain stable, but we can never rule out a decrease. And then collection percentages remain consistent with the previous year at this time.
Any questions of Todd? Sheriff?
Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, Pat's going to discuss her financial forecast for 24-25. Pat?
More numbers.
Short. So just overall, the way this forecast works is we put in all the numbers and growth percentages that we can identify without doing a whole lot to the tax rate, other than projecting some property values growth, and then just let the tax rate figure itself on what the tax rate would need to be to fund all the things that we've identified and how our revenues are going to behave. So overall, that's how this works. The first page is actually the forecast. Second page is a lot of the summary information to help you understand what I've assumed here. So for the expenditure side, salary and benefits, I've included the $2.9 million increase we expect to be needed to cover a 4% COLA and the, 3% merit. Also, it includes the estimated $800,000 to implement an additional salary study and the $75,000 to perform that study. The operating expenses, other than personnel, were all increased by 3.4%, which is the cost of living or the CPI percentage as of December. So for debt service, the last debt we issued was in fiscal '22 for the RCC Workforce Development Center. That's fully covered by the Article 46 sales tax. We do expect to issue new debt for the Rockingham County school projects in fiscal '25. That will be completely covered by the restricted sales tax dollars for school construction and capital. All,
Can you put that up?
The wording?
Yeah.
Chart when she gets to that. Or at least the actual balance sheet. Yeah.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
it's okay, that's okay.
Go ahead.
So all other debt service is now covered by the 5.5 cent CIP dollars that we're now sending over to reserve, and we move those back over to debt service to cover that. So all that's covered by those dollars. We have officially cleared out all of the water sewer debt. We'll pay off the last piece of debt on that this fiscal year, and so all the transfer from the general fund to the water sewer fund is officially gone. It's taken us many years, but we're there.
Promissory note.
Yes, yeah, we will do, yes. Yes,
I've been asking for that for a few, I just want to make sure we don't forget it, so that we,
Start making revenues, start
Right.
reimbursing the county.
yeah, and we did have you have adopted a resolution.
Hang
so-
hang on one second, Pat. Ronnie?
Just to update the board, I checked the revenues over expenditures at the end of the second quarter, and it's up $200,000, just so you know.
For the benefit of the public, could somebody explain the promissory note that Kevin's talking about?
So when I first came on the board, we were taking a penny of the tax rate and funding the water sewer fund, or at least making it balance with at least a penny. And so started a process of trying to eliminate that, because that had been occurring for a number of years. And there really wasn't any mechanism or plan to eliminate that. I mean, we had dipped our toe into this utility. It's something that happened, as Ronnie talked about, 25 years ago. And of course, now that the state is starting to monitor that a lot closer, you know, we've had folks have to go through classes because we were upside down on that fund. But one of the things we've done is try to encourage people to become our customer and stop using, or not necessarily stop using wells, but become our customers, so that as we grew the customer base, we could eliminate that deficit that was occurring on an annual basis. So that's where some of the growth has played into a huge benefit to the county, because we've been able to eliminate that annual deficit. And so now, since we're able to actually have a positive cash flow in that account, the idea is to pay the general fund back, because we've got, it's an enterprise fund, so for the general public, that means that has to be self-sufficient. But unfortunately, it was not self-sufficient for years. So as we're able to reimburse the general fund and make sure that is a fund that is managed correctly, when I say managed correctly, I just mean is self-sufficient, then paying the taxpayer back with the customers that are actually using it. So, because the entire county was paying for water and sewer, even the people in Eden that had city water and sewer, the people in Reedsville that had city water and sewer, just because we had dipped our toe into that. So it just kind of equalizes it.
During the past year, we did have you adopt a resolution for that, where we are going to set up a schedule, and it's set up with estimates that we have now. We'll have to adjust it depending on how the revenues materialize, but set up a schedule to pay back the general fund. We've calculated that amount. We've set up a schedule to pay it back. In addition to requiring a set-aside of a certain amount of money every year for reserve for water sewer to continue to take care of repairs and maintenance in the future, start building a fund up so that as repairs and maintenance are needed down the road, as these systems become older, we'll have money to take care of that as well without having to borrow or go back to the general fund. So that resolution is accomplishing both of those things.
Thank you.
For the capital outlay piece of our budget, I just projected normal capital outlay replacements, no growth there. We have the capital reserve fund, which is going to be sufficient, I think, to cover any major capital outlays that we have coming up. School expenses, at this point, just projected what's currently there. Those will be conversations, discussions that will happen later. As I mentioned, the Article 46 local option sales tax piece is covering all of the RCC Workforce Development Center debt, and everything above that that we collect goes straight to RCC for them to continue other workforce development initiatives. So that covers the expenditure side. The revenue side, had to do some projections on growth. I did not do anything with reval since those numbers are not in here. I took last year's billable values and just projected some growth. Those will have to be fine-tuned as we work through the budget with Todd's numbers. So at the end of that, after everything was assumed and all the other revenues, it would need a 3.27 penny increase to cover all the expenditures that we expect after the other revenues that we're projecting. Other taxes, sales taxes, we're seeing is what we expected. It's slowing down. We're beyond COVID now. It's coming down to what I would consider our normal pre-pandemic growth rates. It's decreased right now about 1% on each article, but in November, the state processed a huge amount of refunds. So that skewed our numbers right now, I believe. So it's going to take me a few more months to get those other collections in here to see if that was just an anomaly month or whether the state's really catching up on refunds. They got behind during COVID, I think, because we didn't see those refunds coming through. So that one's still out there to be looked at. For now, for 25, I'm projecting like a normal 2% growth, what we had pre-pandemic. Unrestricted intergovernmental revenue. That one came back with Medicaid hold harmless. We really didn't have money in there in the years past. Starting in fiscal '21, all of a sudden we started getting Medicaid hold harmless. That's where the state had taken a portion of the county's sales tax several years ago and took on the Medicaid expenses, Medicaid payments. So that was a swap with the agreement that we would be held harmless if the sales tax revenues were higher than their Medicaid expenses. We would get those monies back. With that tremendous growth in our sales tax during the pandemic, that actually flipped and occurred, and we started getting those hold harmless monies back. Now with sales tax slowing down and looking at the Medicaid expenses over the last few years that the state's covered, they're growing faster than the sales tax is. So I have reduced that projection by about $700,000 next year, and see where that one goes. The state puts out annual projections in March on that, so I'll have a better feel what they're going to look at as well then. Other revenues were just projected compared to what they are now. Investment earnings, have dropped that projection down. Interest rates are projected to go down. They haven't yet, but they are projected to go down. That coupled with we are now spending those COVID ARPA money dollars that were advanced to the county. We're starting to spend those now that our projects are up and running. So less revenues to invest, expecting a decrease in interest rates. I have decreased that one as well. So that in a nutshell is the forecast. I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Yeah, just one area to point out is on the revenue side of the fund balance appropriated. This past year, you guys appropriated 4.5, and it goes back down to 2.5. But the reason it was 4.5 is this was a bridge year to get us into the next year as far as 1.5 to implement that pay plan. So I just want to make sure you understood that.
Pat, I have one question. I want to make sure I understood what you said, because I know this is the beginning of the budgeting process, not the end of it. But you said 3.5% increase, but that's not including the information from the reeval.
Correct. My numbers do not, the reval numbers are not available yet, so I could not do anything with that piece.
So it's really just to be determined once we have more information.
Correct.
Thank you.
And Pat, I had you pull some numbers for me today, just for the general public. I mean, over the previous 4 years, our salary and benefits, and this is just, us trying to retain employees, providing the services that we provide, over a 4-year period, that number had increased $12 million. And these are funds that, we practically have to provide, and so that increase is something that we have to find the money for, whether it's from the citizens or through an expansion of the tax base. And so, that's just where we start from 4 years ago to this year, is with, you could say, a deficit of $12 million that we've got to find in order to keep the people that we have. And that's no expansion of any services, that's just maintaining what we have, and that's just the salary and benefits. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
Okay.
And just in that, you had a 60% increase in retirement over the past 4 years, which is pretty substantial.
And that's an obligation that we have.
Out of your control.
Completely out of our control. So that increase, coupled with just the increase in salary and benefits, as far as what we provide to the employees, are things we've got to find the money for. So it's always a tight budget, but luckily, we've been able to make those ends meet as a result of what we would call organic growth, which would be the growth from development in the county, as opposed to asking the taxpayers to pay that.
Questions for Pat? Mr. Manager.
Now it's your turn to give us direction. Right now, it's, we've finished, the staff's finished our part of the, this particular work session. It's you all's turn to give us direction as far as what you want to see us prepare for this upcoming budget year.
So, can I go first? There's a couple of areas that I'd like to talk about real quick. I know that the county has received a grant for a workforce development coordinator. And there's going to be some marketing and other things needed with that. So I'd like the county to be conscious of the fact that we may have to supplement that. Workforce development, as you know, is very important in the county for our employers as well as the citizens. And so we're very interested in that person working with Lee, and I believe that'll be under her department anyway. And so we'll have the economic development and the workforce development right there together, working hand in hand. So I don't know what that potential number may look like. We may not have to supplement it at all, but I would like to be ready to do that should the need arise.
We might have to add to it.
The other thing that's on my mind, in the last 8 months, there's been a lot of talk about the crime rate in Rockingham County. A quick search of Google finds that our crime rate for the serious crimes are above the national average, and for property crimes is double the national average here in the county. But in the last 3 years, I believe that we've increased the Sheriff's Department's salary by $3.7 million. What I'd like, their budget, yeah. No, I'm sorry, not salary. I'm sure they would like that. The budget by $3.7 million. So I'm interested if you could check and see if that money is having any effect on working on that crime rate, or if there's other influences there that we don't know about that need to be addressed.
Okay.
I think that the last thing that I would have is the maintenance plan on the employees' classifications and salary. We've talked about that for the last 2 or 3 years, having some kind of way to advance them as they need to be advanced per classifications, or to give them some idea of where they may be if they come to work for the county within a 5 or 10 year period. Now I realize, just let me say up front that I realize that could actually be accelerated if we have a very good economy, but it could also be slowed down considerably if the economy takes a turn. So I realize that's a hard number to determine, but if we could have some way to automatically progress these classifications without having to do a study every year or two. And we may not be able to do that, but I'm just saying, I know when I worked here, we had, there were steps you took that moved you along in your classifications, and I believe that we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. But I think that would be good for the employees, and we certainly know that we still have work to do with our employees on their pay to be able to retain them as long-term employees with the county. Thank you for what you've done. Appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Well, I agree with what Don has said. Also, we have created a plan as far as our capital. By capital, I'm talking about the structures, I'm talking about equipment. And that was something that, when I first came on the board, that was a project that was certainly pushed for, and certainly appreciate your work on that. We have gotten to a point where we're in pretty good financial shape, and a lot of that has to do with the work that you and Paul, and now you and Derek, and of course always Pat, have done on the budget, and all the department heads. So, we started this process, and there's always a plan. People may disagree with how we prioritize things, but at this point, as I look back, I believe the funding for education has remained flat for about 14 years. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that takes us back to about 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And I'm being told by some school board members that may be 2006. Okay, so closer to 18 years.
Well, my time, I don't.
And, I've heard a number of different things over time that, we're only responsible for the buildings, and quite frankly, the job that we've done on the buildings, it took us some time, but we got to the point where, within the past couple of meetings, we voted on over $20 million of improvements through some work with Pat, the school board, and our board. Those improvements being buildings that are occupied by students. I know there's some rumors out there of some things taking place in some long vacated buildings where people just like they didn't understand what they were voting on the water and sewer. They apparently didn't understand what they were voting on when they voted to put a roof on the gym out at Bethany, not on anything else. And so, there's, unfortunately, there's all kinds of things that get skewed with what we're doing, but those improvements are long needed. We've had reports of students at different schools throughout the counties getting wet as they're trying to study. And so, we've started that process. Well, I think the next process, since that number's been stagnant, I was thinking it was 2009. So let me plug this in and see what this number is. All right. So the rate of inflation from the calculator I'm seeing from 2006 to 2024 is 51.1%. And Pat, please, check and see. You may have some different data points that you would use, but with our numbers remaining flat, and unfortunately over time we've heard we're only responsible for the buildings. We've heard that the school system's losing students. Yes, they have fewer students, but the money that we allocate per student also follows the student as far as local dollars. Some people think it's just state dollars, but it's also local dollars that follow the students to charter schools. There's more charter schools now than there were in 2006. I believe back then there were a very small number, and there was only one in the county out in Bethany. So it'd be interesting to add those kids back to the total and see where we are as far as per pupil expenditures. But if the rate of inflation is 50% or some number close to that, we've got to better fund our education system. And I'm not saying that the number that they used in 2006 was the correct number, but the fact that it's remained flat, unfortunately, is a reflection on how we value what we're doing with our future. And so we've got to find a way, now that we've got a process of the buildings, we're doing well with economic development, we've got our own stuff in order as far as capital, we've committed to our employees, and I'm not saying this is any certain order, but we've committed to our employees and committed to maintaining a pay scale. We've got to do something with our future as well, and that's the education. And we'll continue to work with the school system, try to figure out exactly what those needs are with the school system, but for that number to remain flat is something that we've got to fix. We've got to better fund that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Commissioner Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is my first budget retreat after actually having some time on the board. So as far as the way the county's moving and the things that we've addressed over the last year, I'm really pleased with how things are going. So I'd like to continue the process of what we've been doing. One thing that I am concerned about, we talked earlier about areas where we have vacancies in employment. Specifically, I want to focus in on health and human services. We've worked on trying to address this financially with doing the pay study and increasing. After having some conversations with some of our employees and some people that have resigned from the county, I'd be interested in us just trying to evaluate other factors that may be causing people to drop out of health and human services. If that means doing something similar to what we did with the landfill, with having a third party, do an evaluation. I understand that we do our surveys, but there may be things people don't want to put on a survey, possibly out of fear of retaliation. So if we could just look into that and try to see if there's anything going on other than just there's not enough money, because I always know there's never enough money for anything, but maybe there's something else going on too. So that's my primary thing I'd like to just have a look at. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I was pleased to see this board do this evening was to keep our vision and our goals aligned. If we don't have some stability along that line, you folks don't know where we're going. So we're trying to stay as stable as we can. Now, that said, if there's need to adjust, we will adjust. But in the meantime, we want to provide clear guidance, and I would request every member of the staff here, especially through their department heads, to let us know when our priorities are slipping and we need to relook at our vision. As far as budget priorities, mine remain the same as they have. I would certainly like to see it overall property tax decrease. And I say that because of the large percentage of elderly folks that are on fixed income in this county. And when we get a chance to lower that property tax, that probably has more impact on them than it does normal folks. Now, I realize due to inflation and various other costs of doing business, that's a difficult thing. Yet I want that priority to remain with you as you go through the budget process. Followed by raising the salaries for all county employees. And that's not just because they do a great job, and by and large, they do a good job, but we need to compensate our employees in Rockingham County at a level that makes us competitive with other counties, other states, other locations. And I would not want to sacrifice some of the gains, or any of the gains really, that we've made recently. And when I talk about county employees, I include the teachers in that, and that goes along with what Mr. Berger was talking about. Make us more competitive, hire the very best folks that we can to put in our educational process. And finally, along with schools And this is not something to add to this year's budget, but it's something that perhaps we can build towards or prepare for, because we're anticipating the need to enlarge some of our elementary schools within the county. We'll be listening for what our school board recommends and suggests along this line, but also probably 2 brand-new schools somewhere in the county to deal with population growth that we expect. I know that the school system has lost students over the last, particularly 10 years. In fact, we're about 2,500, 3,000 down over the number of students had when I first taught in the school system. Yet, the last thing I'd like to see us end up doing is going into a bond referendum that put us behind the 8 ball financially at that time. And I'm expecting those constructions to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And so, though I don't expect to see anything on this year's budget, I think it is a consideration to keep in the back of our minds and prepare for, and perhaps get ahead of the game. So those are general priorities that I have. I don't think they're inconsistent from not only what you've heard from me, but everybody on this board. It's a difficult time and it's a tough job. I really admire how well you've done. Derek, you come in after superstar Paul and have kept it up. And I'm totally impressed with how particularly your department heads have come along and made very useful suggestions that have kept us in the black and actually increased our fund balance in the last few years. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, Lance, I'll speak to you directly, Mr. Manager. I appreciate the job you're doing. I think the county is headed in a good direction. We appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate everyone else who's contributed to this. This is a good experience to look into. Let me say, we didn't talk much tonight about our capital improvement plan that Mr. Tate and you guys have worked on. We'll see that as we come into the actual budgeting process. But I think that's a great indication of how you guys are looking to the future to plan ahead so we don't stub our toe. And thank you very much. Commissioner Richardson brought up the property tax rate and how he would like to see that reduced. And just to point out that June 3rd of 2019, we did just that. By a vote of 4-1, we did lower your property tax rate when we could. And most of those ones who voted yes are still on this board. So we'll still have that idea in mind. So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. Tonight, I'd also like to thank our school board members, Paula Rakestraw and Kimberly McMichael, for being here. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate your input. One other thing that I want to talk about, and I'm going to probably bring this up tonight in our regular meeting, but being on this commission is more than just sitting through 2 meetings a month. So many things go on that you may not be aware of, and I'd like to thank each one of these commissioners for the things they do ancillary that the public never sees. Commissioner Richardson has just been appointed to the statewide board for FIA, the mental health folks, LME MCOs. He's also on the regional board. And we appreciate the work that you do in that setting. Also, Commissioners Powell and Barrow sit on our Health and Human Services Board. They have an additional meeting each month and goes over a lot of these needs that come up, the opioid task force, the other things. They deal with that. Commissioner Berger, he deals with our fire departments. He is also a liaison along with Mr. Powell to the Board of Education. And again, that's more meetings per month. So there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that the public doesn't see. And I appreciate you guys and the effort that you put in to be sure that this county is heading in the right direction. And this is not a comprehensive list. This is just a few things that I'm seeing tonight based on the priorities that we brought up. And so thank you, Mr. Manager. If you have any final remarks.
Marching orders, so we'll certainly come back to you guys in the near future.
Very good. Thank you. With that, we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. We'll